The Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled in Democrats' favor on a number of mail-in voting rules, and Republicans are asking the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene. Among the rulings the GOP is challenging, counting mail-in ballots received up to 3 days after Election Day and refusing to allow partisan poll watchers to be stationed in counties where they do not live. The president just attacked the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision as being predicated on, quote, corruption. It's just one of many legal battles the Trump campaign is waging regarding voting rules ahead of the election. President Trump won the Keystone State in 2016 by 0.73%, just 44,000 votes, and it promises to be a crucial battleground state this year. Joining me is Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Attorney General. First, if I could get your reaction to the president's tweet moments ago using the word corruption to describe what's taking place in your state.
Look, it's just more reckless and irresponsible rhetoric coming from the president of the United States. We saw this last week when he attacked our Commonwealth over military overseas ballots, suggesting that there was some sort of corruption going on. When we gathered the facts, we took a deep breath, we stopped listening to the president's nonsense on Twitter, and law enforcement determined that it was a clerical issue, not a criminal issue. I don't know exactly what's happened on the ground here, but what I do know is that the president tweeting, the president stoking doubt in our democracy, the president trying to undermine the vote here in Pennsylvania, does nothing to advance the cause on behalf of our democracy, and does nothing to give people confidence in our election system, which is the leader of our country. He ought to be doing. And what he ought to really focus on is putting his ideas forth to the people of Pennsylvania and letting them make a judgment on his job approval and whether he deserves a second term. I think what we know is that if it's a fair fight like that, the president probably comes out on the short end of the stick. And so he's afraid of that. He's afraid of the people. He's afraid of the voters. And so instead of acting responsibly, as other presidents have done, he acts recklessly and irresponsibly and tweets nonsense like that.
Well, let's turn to the issue of ballots. First of all, if you could explain to our viewers what a so-called naked ballot is, and do you see merit in the arguments against them?
Yeah, this is not controversial at all. This is how people vote by mail in many other states. If I can, let me actually demonstrate for you here. If you choose to vote by mail, and to give you some perspective on that, we'll have about 6 million people vote. Estimates suggest that about 3 million people will request ballots to be able to vote by mail. So give or take, it's about half of the voters. You get a ballot at home. This is what it looks like. You fill it out, choose your preferred candidates, you fold it up, and you stick it in what's known as a secrecy envelope, which looks just like this. Then that secrecy envelope goes inside the outer envelope, which you sign, you put everything in, and you mail it back in a timely fashion. That's how the process works. It's not controversial at all. The thing here is the president seems to want to make everything feel and sound controversial in order to create this doubt and stoke fear in the process. And he's doing it really for one reason and one reason only, I believe, and that is to make people feel powerless, to make them feel like maybe their vote won't count, make it feel like maybe they don't have a full say over the future of our democracy. I think that's shameful, and I think it's wrong. And at the end of the day, what the people need to be assured of, and I do this as their lawyer every day, is that they're the ones with the power in this process. By exercising their right to vote, whether it's by mail or it's by showing up on Election Day or at one of these early voting centers, they're claiming the power as they have it in this country. They get to choose the direction of our country and the future of our democracy. And I'm not going to let the president or anyone take away their power. This is not controversial. This is how you vote. I would note that 16 other states require the secrecy envelope. And why do we do that? We do that because we want our ballots to remain secret in this process until ultimately they are counted.
So, yeah, many states that use naked ballots do not reject ballots returned without the privacy sleeve. So why is Pennsylvania choosing to reject them?
Well, state Supreme Court case here in Pennsylvania that interpreted our laws determined that the legislature and the governor, when they passed this law back in 2019, by the way, I would point out that it passed with more Republican votes than Democratic votes. This was not a partisan or controversial matter. This was a way in which we were trying to engage more people in our democracy, that they determined that you need to have the secrecy envelope and that it needed to be inside the outer envelope. It's not hard. Think of it like a wedding invitation. One of my constituents, Megan from Pittsburgh, said that. You got your outer envelope, you got your inner envelope that houses the invitation, and then you got the invitation. Of course, here we're talking about a ballot. This is not hard. This is not controversial. This is the manner in which the legislature said that ballots ought to be mailed back in order for them to be counted.
Let's take a step back for a moment. What changes has your state made to accommodate voter concerns about voting safely during a pandemic?
Well, prior to 2019, really the only way to vote in Pennsylvania was in person on Election Day or with an absentee ballot, where you had to demonstrate a reason why you were requesting that absentee ballot. Pennsylvania back in 2019, like many other states have done, added vote by mail, added the opportunity to vote by mail with no excuse. Obviously, at the time that lawmakers passed that, no one knew about coronavirus or COVID-19, but it has given people the opportunity, if they're concerned from a public health perspective about showing up to the polls on Election Day, or perhaps they can't get out of work, whatever the case may be, they now have an opportunity to vote legally and safely through the mail. And by doing so, we engage more people in our democracy, more voices can be heard, and then ultimately a just outcome comes. No matter who's chosen, we know that the voters had the opportunity to choose that particular candidate by voting either from their homes or an early voting center, or by mail, or on November 3rd on Election Day at the polls.
The state Supreme Court recently ruled that ballots received up to 3 days after Election Day can be counted. What's the legal rationale, and do you expect a challenge?
Well, everything has been challenged here in Pennsylvania, including by the President of the United States. Think about that for a moment. We have a sitting President of the United States that is attacking the voting laws in one particular state, probably because he doesn't like the fact that people are voting by mail, and the people who are signing up to vote by mail tend not to be Republicans. They are more overwhelmingly Democrats. And so the president, in his cynical way, is trying to limit how many of these ballots can be counted. As it relates to the deadline, there has obviously been a significant amount of issues at the U.S. Postal Service. In fact, I've led a lawsuit made up of states from all over the country that a judge just ruled on yesterday in federal court here in Pennsylvania. And our lawsuit alleged that illegal changes were made at the post office, which has had the effect of slowing down the mail. We were able to prove that the mail had been slowed down. We were able to prove that the leadership of the U.S. Postal Service actually made those changes, and that those changes were illegal. And so a judge blocked those changes, and now they have to roll it back. But as a result of those changes, the U.S. Postal Service wasn't able to guarantee a timely delivery of election mail, and in fact said as much in a letter that they sent to our Department of State, the state entity that oversees elections. Because of that, Governor Wolf, our governor here in Pennsylvania, went to court and sought 3 additional days that ballots could be received, so long as they were postmarked by the evening of Election Day. That's allowing people the opportunity to mail their ballots back in a timely manner and not have to worry if the Postal Service is running slow. The state Supreme Court ultimately decided that those 3 extra days were warranted, given all of the other situations going on with the Postal Service, and that's how they ruled. My lawsuit was separate against the Postal Service, and I'm hoping with our win yesterday in federal court, we'll begin to see the mail flowing again on time. Obviously, when our state Supreme Court ruled just last week, they did not have the benefit of that federal ruling and the requirement that the judge put in place that those illegal changes be rolled back.
All right, a great deal of interest in what's happening in your state. Pennsylvania Attorney General Josh Shapiro. Thanks very much, Mr. Attorney General, for sharing your perspective with us.
Good to be with you. Thank you.